Good evening and welcome to Broward County, Florida. I'm Jake Tapper. You're about to witness an historic exchange between survivors of a horrific school shooting and their elected leaders. In this arena are thousands of people whose lives were changed forever 1 week ago today when a gunman opened fire inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and killed 17 students and teachers. 4 victims remain hospitalized. But since that horrible day, we have seen this community come together, and we have seen an amazing and eloquent group of students with various opinions talk about what they feel needs to change. We're here tonight to facilitate your desire to speak directly to your leaders. Students and family members and faculty will get to ask questions to Florida's 2 U.S. Senators, Republican Marco Rubio and Democrat Bill Nelson, as well as their Congressman, Democrat Ted Deutch. And later tonight, these students and their families will get to ask questions of the Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, and a national spokesperson for the NRA. We should note that President Trump declined an invitation to be here tonight, either in person or from the White House, as did the governor of Florida, Rick Scott, who declined to be here in person or from Tallahassee. Before we begin tonight, we want to take some time to remember the 17 beloved members of the community who were murdered 1 week ago today. May their memory be a blessing. Students, parents, and teachers, the lawmakers are ready to answer your questions, but first, they each wanted a minute to address you specifically. I'm going to start with Congressman Deutch.
Thanks, Jake. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to CNN for being here in South Florida for a very important and yet incredibly difficult evening. A lot of people have told this community, people from all around the world, that it's too soon. It's too soon to get together to have this kind of forum. It's too soon to talk about preventing another tragedy like the one that struck our community from happening anywhere again. It's too soon to talk about getting weapons of war out of our communities. It is not too soon. It is too late for the 17 lives that were lost. It is too late for the grieving families, too late for the injured, too late for the 3,300 survivors of what happened. Senator Rubio and Senator Nelson, we represent these fine people. We will not be judged by what we say here tonight, by the quality of our answers, or by any back and forth in words. The folks in our community don't want words. They don't want thoughts and prayers. They don't want discussions. They want action, and we owe it to them to provide it.
Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson.
We're all grieving. Your hope gives me hope. Your determination gives me more determination. And what we're facing is what's going to be done. Now, there ought to be some common sense solutions, like getting the assault rifles off the streets. Another common sense solution, having criminal background checks on every acquiring of a gun. So you have been so strong. Keep it up and keep hope alive. Thank you.
Senator Rubio.
There's no words that could describe the pain that a parent feels at the loss of a child, or when you lose someone that's loved. It's not natural to lose a child. And I am a U.S. Senator, and I'm also a member of this community, and I'm also a father, and I'm also a husband, and I'm also someone who loves, but I don't know what the pain it's like to lose a child. I did not grow up in a school or at an era in which children were shot in classrooms. And even as we watch this pain and the nation suffers with you, we can never know the feeling. I can tell you this, there is a message that's come through loud and clear. And that is that beyond simply the pain, mixed with that pain is a demand for action. And well, in that realm, I want to be honest with you. I think all of us would like to see action, but I want to tell you what we're going to struggle with. We are a nation of people that no longer speak to each other. We are a nation of people who have stopped being friends with people because of who they voted for in the last election. We are a nation of people who have isolated ourselves to only watch channels that tell us that we're right. We're a nation of people that have isolated ourselves politically, and to a point where discussions like this have become very difficult. I'm here tonight, and I'm here tonight to answer any question anyone has, explain anything you want to know about what I stand for, what I've done, and what I plan to do. And to the students that are here tonight, the ones on the stage, the ones in the audience, I want you to know that I'm actually extremely excited about your engagement. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because I think you have a chance to do a lot more than change guns laws. You should push for that. You have a chance to do a lot more than that. You have a chance to change the way we talk about politics in this country. And the reason why this event is here so important tonight, the reason why this event is so important, none of us wish we were here. 8 days ago, none of you thought you would be here. But we are here, and it's important that we are, because tonight, people who have different points of view are going to talk about an issue that I think we all believe, and that is that this should never have happened, and it can never happen again. And if we want to truly ensure that it doesn't, if we want to ensure that it doesn't, then we are going to have to find a way as a nation, to work with people that may not agree with us on certain things, without accusing one another of being evil people. And my side is as guilty of that as any. And here's what I hope for the students. Do not make the mistakes that my generation is making. It may not be, I hope it's not too late for my generation, but it most certainly is not for yours. Understand that people, and I think on a regular basis we do that in the Senate, between Senator Nelson and I think people that disagree on issues can agree on what they want to achieve and can find a way forward. And that's what I hope tonight is beyond anything else. Because sadly, we cannot reverse what happened 7 days ago today. But we can make sure that one of these events never happens again in any community in this country. And if tonight is the beginning of that, then we will have said that this was meaningful. And that's what I'm here to do. And that's what I hope we can achieve together. And that's why I'm here tonight. You may not like everything I say or everything I stand for, but I want to find a way forward to solve this problem so that never again will any community have to face this, any parent have to face this, or any child, yours or mine, have to face this in what I believe is the greatest nation on earth.
Thank you. I want to bring in Ryan Schachter. Ryan Schachter's younger brother, Alex, was killed in the shooting. Alex was 14. He played in the school band and the school orchestra. Ryan has a question for Congressman Deutch. Ryan?
Congressman Deutch, my name is Ryan Schachter. I'm a senior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. My brother Alex was killed in the shooting last Wednesday. I'm supposed to go back to school in the upcoming week. My friends and I are worried that we are going to be murdered in our classrooms. What reassurances can you give me, and what specifically are you going to do to make sure that we can't have this fear?
Well, first of all, I offer my heartfelt condolences. I'm sorry for your loss. And I understand why you feel that way, because in our country today, what happened at Stoneman Douglas has happened too many times. What am I going to do? Well, as a starter, next week when we go back to Washington, we're going to introduce legislation to make sure that assault weapons are illegal in every part of this country. But that's not going to help you when you go back to school. And all I can tell you is that we stand with law enforcement in Broward County. We stand with the administration and the teachers in your school to provide as much security, as much comfort, as much as can make you feel that you're in a safe place. But beyond that, the best way for us to show that is to take action in Washington, in Tallahassee, to get these weapons of war off of our streets.
Thank you, Congressman. I want to bring in Fred Guttenberg. Fred's 14-year-old daughter, Jamie, was lost last week, and he has a question for Senator Rubio.
Senator Rubio, I just listened to your opening, and thank you. I want to like you. Here's the problem, and I'm a brutally honest person, so I'm just going to say it up front.
Yes, sir. When
I like you, you know it, and when I'm pissed at you, you know it. Your comments this week and those of our president have been pathetically weak. So, you and I are now eye to eye, because I want to like you. Look at me and tell me guns were the factor in the hunting of our kids in this school this week. And look at me and tell me you accept it and you will work with us to do something about guns.
Fred, I'm not, first of all, let me explain what I said this week, and I'll repeat it. I'll repeat what I said, and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to talk about guns, and we're going to talk about what I said this week, and here's what I said. I said that the problems that we are facing...
Let him speak. I think we need to hear it.
I'm saying that the problems that we're facing here today cannot be solved by gun laws alone. And I'm going to tell you what we've done already and what I hope we'll do moving forward.
Were guns the factor in the hunting of our kids?
Of course they were. And here's
it's the weapon of choice. Can you say that?
Number one, Fred, I absolutely believe that in this country, if you are 18 years of age, you should not be able to buy a rifle, and I will support a law that takes that right away.
Fantastic.
I will support the banning of bump stocks, and I know that the President has ordered the Attorney General to do it, and if he doesn't, we should do it by law. I will support changing our background system so that it includes more information than it includes now, and that all states across the country are required or incentivized to report all the information into it. And let me tell you what I've done already. Last year, when we came up with our budget in the Senate, I pushed for and got approved $50 million a year through the Sandy Hook Initiative to provide a threat assessment fund for all states to be able to stand up in each of the school districts a way to identify people who could potentially do this and get ahead of it before it happens. I support moving forward on that initiative and making it widely available for everyone around the country. Now, I think what you're asking about is the assault weapons ban.
Yes, sir.
So let me be honest with you about that one. If I believed that that law would have prevented this from happening, I would support it. But I want to explain to you why it would not.
Senator Rubio, my daughter, running down the hallway at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, was shot in the back.
Yes, sir.
With an assault weapon, the weapon of choice.
Yes, sir.
Okay? It is too easy to get. It is a weapon of war. The fact that you can't stand with everybody in this building and say that, I'm sorry.
Sir, I do believe what you're saying is true. I do believe what you're saying is true. I do believe what you're saying.
Everyone, the senator has a right to be heard. He's answering Mr. Guttenberg's question.
I do believe what you're saying is true. I believe that someone like this individual and anyone like him shouldn't have any gun. Not this gun, any gun. But I want to explain to you for a moment the problem with the law that they call the assault weapons ban. And if you'll give me and indulge me for a minute to explain to you the problem. First, you have to define what it is. If you look at the law and its definition, it basically bans 200 models of gun in this country, about 220 specific models of gun.
Good, good.
Okay? But it allows legal 2,000 other types of gun that are identical. Identical in the way that they function, in how fast they fire, in the type of caliber that they fire, in the way they perform. They are indistinguishable from the ones that become illegal. And the only thing that separates the two types, is if you put a plastic handle grip on one, it becomes banned. If it doesn't have a plastic handle grip, it does not become banned. So let me explain, if I may, just for a moment more,
what the
problem has been with the law.
You will start with the 200 and work your way up?
I would explain to you what has happened.
It's a place to start. We can do that.
Well, but let me explain to you what's happened. So in New York, they have passed that ban. And you know what they've done to get right around it? It took them 15 seconds to do it. They simply take the plastic tip off of it. They just take the plastic grip off the front or the back.
So we don't start.
The same gun, and it becomes legal. Performs the exact same way. So what my belief remains, that rather than continue to try to chase every loophole that's created, it's why it failed in '94, it's why they're getting around it now in California, it's how they get around it in New York, is we instead should make sure that dangerous criminals, people that are deranged, cannot buy any gun of any kind. That's what I believe a better answer will be.
Okay.
Your answer speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mr. Guttenberg. I appreciate your time. The only thing I'm not going to tell anybody in this room to not feel, I'm not going to tell anybody in this room not to feel strongly and not to feel emotional. The only thing I will tell you is when you do this, you're eating up into the time that other people in the audience, other people who want to ask questions are asking questions, okay? So you behave how you want to behave, but I want to make sure that as many people in this community get to ask questions. That's why I'm here. We're going to go now to junior Samantha Grady. She was in one of the classes that the gunman attacked, and she has a question for Senator Nelson.
Senator Nelson, I was shot twice. I was grazed on my back and ricocheted on my chest. My best friend was killed right in front of me. And the experience that I had can never be taken away from me, no matter how much I want it to be. What are you gonna do to strengthen background checks to prevent another tragedy like this from occurring again?
We have in Florida what is known as the gun show loophole. There was actually a constitutional amendment passed in 1998 to our state constitution. And it was to be left up to the counties. And most of the counties have not enforced the gun show loophole. And as a result, you can go to a gun show if it's not a licensed federal dealer that is selling a gun. There is no requirement of a criminal background check. That's one thing can be done not only in Florida, but that can be done in Washington as well. You asked specifically about the criminal background check. That would certainly help. It would have, if there had been an intrusive one, it would have gotten to Omar Mateen, the murderer in the Pulse nightclub, 49 lives. I want to say that my colleague, Senator Rubio, and I have a good relationship. We get a lot of stuff done together. And I want you to know that I told him before we came out here tonight that he had guts coming here when in fact there is no representative of the state of Florida. Our governor did not come here, Governor Scott, but Marco did. I would expand further and just tell you there are so many other things that we can do. Certainly mental health. Certainly the question, as the sheriff had brought up, about putting armed deputies. But when you get right down to it, the gun is what is going to do the killing. And I'll just finally say this. I'm a native Floridian. I grew up on a ranch. I've always had guns. I've hunted all my life. I still hunt with my son. But an AK-47 and an AR-15 is not for hunting. It's for killing.
I want to bring in Gabriel Edenbaum. He's a first-year student. He saw the shooter across a courtyard at school and hid in a closet until a SWAT team arrived. And Gabriel has a question for Congressman Deutch. Gabriel.
Dana, why can a 19-year-old with mental health issues and other problems walk into a gun store and buy an AR-15 and ammunition? How was he able to get a gun when he was mentally ill and his mom called the cops on him 39 times?
Right. First of all, I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been for you. And you're right to ask the question. The fact is, in this case, this shooter, 39 times law enforcement came to visit. There were disturbing, frightening social media postings. The fact is that what we need to do, and there are efforts at the state and there is federal legislation that would do it, is provide law enforcement the opportunity to get a gun violence temporary restraining order so that if it's clear that someone might do damage, then that person's gun should be taken away from them. And I know, Jake, I know this is not a debate, but I don't know if we're going to get back to it. And I just want to respond to something Senator Rubio said because he told us a lot about his views on the assault weapons ban. And I would just simply say this: if there is a problem with the assault weapons ban, which, by the way, when it expired, let's be clear, mass shootings went up 200% in the decade after the assault weapons ban expired. But if there is a problem with the way that was written, if there were too many loopholes for people trying to get around it to utilize, then let's bring up the assault weapons ban and close all those loopholes so that we have a bill that keeps people safe.
And Gabriel's is an excellent question, and I want to answer that one if I may. I know it's not a debate, but this is an important point. It really is, because it is an issue that I want people to understand more about. First of all, I appreciate your words. Being here tonight is not courage. Courage is what you did and what you guys are doing and what those teachers and administrators did. That's courage. And Fred, you talked to your story a moment ago. I would tell you that what you've done in this effort, irrespective of we may have a different view on something, that's courage. That's real courage. Now, on the issue that you've raised about the background checks, relate directly to what you said about the assault weapons ban. It's not the loopholes. It's the problem that once you start looking at how easy it is to get around it, you would literally have to ban every semi-automatic rifle that's sold in America. Fair enough. That is a valid position to hold. But my colleagues do not support banning every semi-automatic rifle sold in America.
I believe that the idea that a gunman like this could march down the halls of Stoneman Douglas High School and fire off 150 rounds in 6 or 7 minutes, that gun should be banned. There is no reason that anybody should own one of them.
And that is a very valid point. But my point is that under the law that you support, there would still be 2,000 guns that were legal that could do the exact same thing.
Well, then let's sit down and figure out what they are so that we can ensure people...
I know, but look, this is an important discussion because now you're seeing what the debate is about the assault weapons ban. And I just ask, are you in favor of banning any gun that can do what the AR-15 can do? Yes or no?
I am in favor. Senator Rubio, if you have a concern about something, let me just answer this question because it's important.
It is. That's the whole debate.
Yeah, and the answer to the question is, do I support banning weapons that fire off 150 rounds in 7 to 8 minutes, weapons that are weapons of war that serve no purpose other than killing the maximum number of people they can? You bet I am.
Okay. That's important to know. And that is a very fair position to hold. So and I just want you to understand that goes well beyond the bill that's before us now.
Well, then sit with me and let's come up with something that you support.
I'd like to let Senator Nelson into this conversation as well.
I only raised that not to get into a debate, and I want Senator Nelson to speak, of course. I just want to say that the reason why I raised that point is so you understand that is what the debate is about. It is about the fact that there are over 2,000, virtually every rifle sold in America today can do what that gun does.
That's not true.
It is true. It's absolutely
Senator
true.
Nelson.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me tell you about the bill that I have co-sponsored. It defines very specifically assault rifle. It lists 200 different assault rifles. It lists, for example, the Kalashnikov AK-47 that, did you know, is manufactured in this state? Did you know that the state of Florida, the governor's office gave financial incentives for them to come into the state and manufacture? Tell you another one that it is listed in that list of over 200 rifles. It's the Sig Sauer MCX. That was the one that Omar Mateen, despite the fact that he had been on the terrorist watch list and was off, went into a gun shop and purchased that high-powered assault rifle. And on that list, it also includes the AR-15. And did you know that the state of Florida, the governor's office, gave financial incentives for the Colt Corporation to come to Kissimmee to manufacture AR-15s, the same one that wrecks such havoc here and that you all are suffering so terribly from.
Thank you.
And so it can, in fact, be defined if you're very specific, and that's the bill that I am a co-sponsor of.
Thank you, Senator. I want to bring in Senior Ryan Deutch. He has a question for Senator Rubio.
First, I'd just like to say to Senator Rubio, thank you so much for coming out here. I know, especially everybody that I've been working with over the past week, we've just really wanted to reach out and speak face-to-face to anybody who has a say in this debate. And I know this is not a debate, this is a discussion, but I'm just thankful to have you here, to be looking at you today. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. Now I'd like to say, Senator, these drills, code reds, active shooters, they've been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. When I was in 5th grade, I had to hide in a closet, in a bathroom for 3 hours and just waiting with my teacher and nearly 20 other kids to see that just because a shooter has come to our town, not even in the school itself, now 7 years later, I'm in a closet with 19 other kids waiting, fearing for my own life. Now I'd like to ask you, that after me and several others have been going out of their way, going to the state capitol, speaking out, we'd like to know, why do we have to be the ones to do this? Why do we have to speak out to the Capitol? Why do we have to march on Washington just to save innocent lives?
I agree. You're right. You're absolutely right. And let me start by saying, and it goes without saying, that what you've lived through and what you lived through is not supposed to be a part of your high school experience. It's just not supposed to happen. The second thing I would say is that it is unfortunate that in this country we have been able to make progress on any major issue for a lot of different reasons, and this being one of them. But you do have a chance to change it. I really believe it. But to change it, we are going to have to figure out how people that have strong feelings on both sides can agree on things. And I think you are making progress. I can tell you what's already happening as a result of your advocacy. For example, I've already announced, and I hope they will pass it. I really think they will, and they should. It's a concept called a gun violence restraining order that allows authorities, and it has to be someone in your immediate family, it has to be somebody you live with, it has to be your parent, it has to be an administrator, can go to authorities and allow someone to not just be prevented from purchasing any firearm, okay, not just the rifle, any firearm, and allow those to be taken from them, and that person will have due process. Because I believe that if that were in place in Florida, and about 3 states already have it, it could have prevented this from happening. And I support that, and I hope they will pass that. And I think that is a result of your advocacy.
If I may, I do appreciate your words there, but that feels like the first step of a 5K run.
It most certainly is. I would say it's more than a 5K run. This issue will take more than a 5K run because there's so much to do, but that is an important step. And if that happens in the next 3 weeks, it'll be because of what you guys have done. And it won't end there. On Monday of this week, I believe we're going to try, Senator Nelson and I, to pass the Fix NICS Act, which is fixing the background check system, because the background check is only as good as the information that's on it. And one of the problems we have, and this is going to be an uncomfortable discussion for our country, we're going to have to look at HIPAA laws when it comes to certain things, because right now these people can't even talk to each other if someone is under psychiatric care or if something's going on in their lives. That's going to have to be fixed. And what I'm saying is, what you are doing now is making a difference. It is making a difference. It's already started to make a difference. And I believe it can and will make a difference if this doesn't end here. Because the way we are in this country today, and this is not a criticism of you, Jake, but the cameras will leave and the issues move on, but the heartbreak will remain. And so if we truly want this to be the last time, then what you have done cannot end next week or next month or even next year. But I do believe that at the end of the 3-week session in Tallahassee, you've achieved that restraining order and a few other important things that I believe they're thinking about doing. I would take that, I would herald it as a victory, and I would continue the momentum moving forward until we have made the progress necessary to ensure that no community in America will ever have to have a forum like the one here tonight.
Thank you, Ryan. President Trump said today that we should consider arming teachers. We'll hear what a Stoneman Douglas teacher thinks about that next. Welcome back to CNN's Town Hall with the students and faculty and family members of Stoneman Douglas High School. I want to bring in right now Ashley Kurth. She's a culinary arts teacher at Stoneman Douglas. For those of you at home who don't know, because I think everybody in this room knows, she sheltered 65 students in her classroom during the shooting. Ashley, thank you so much. She has a question for Senator Rubio.
Senator Rubio, I'm a registered Republican. I voted for Mr. Trump. I still, support the Second Amendment. However, with that being said, and with all these talks of gun control laws and everything that you guys have been up there stating to us of what you're going to do about it, a lot of the flack that I've been getting back from my friends and from a lot of other people that are around the world is the answer to the gun problem is to arm teachers. And when I had those hundreds of terrified children that were running at me, my question to that is, am I supposed to get extra training now to serve and protect on top of educate these children on how to be these eloquent speakers that are coming up and presenting issues to you? I mean, am I supposed to have a Kevlar vest? Am I supposed to strap it to my leg or put it in my desk? How am I supposed to go on that way?
Well, first, I don't support that. I think I join everyone here in saying what you've done is incredible heroism. It reminds us that teachers are heroes every day, not just on these days, investing in the lives of all of our students. And I think that bears saying. I don't support that. And I would admit to you right now, I answer that as much as a father as I do as a senator. The notion that my kids are going to school with teachers that are armed with a weapon is not something that, quite frankly, I'm comfortable with. Beyond it, I think it has practical problems. And I'll share what they are. And this is really about the safety of the teacher as much as anything else. Imagine in the middle of this crisis, and the SWAT team comes into the building, and there's an adult with a weapon in their hands, and the SWAT team doesn't know who is who, and we have an additional tragedy that was unnecessary. And so I understand how some people are saying that, and I'm not belittling them, but as a father and as someone who has talked to plenty of teachers, including the 3 in my family and the assistant principal in my family, I don't think that would be a good idea in my view.
That was the first thing that happened when the SWAT team came in. Yes. The first question they asked is, anybody injured? And the following question is, does anybody have a gun? Right. And I wouldn't want to be the person saying, yes, I do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Nelson, President Trump suggested earlier today that he thought arming teachers might be an idea worth considering. Do you think it is?
I think it is a terrible idea. You know, I was so impressed on the TV of the students, what they were saying to the president. And then the president comes out with suggestions like that. You heard what the superintendent said. He doesn't want to have to arm teachers. Now, the sheriff came up with a suggestion that he's going to have a deputy that will be armed. But that deputy can't be in all of your buildings in a school of 3,000 students. It will help if it's a deterrent, it's good. But if the weapon is a high caliber, rapid fire assault weapon, it is hard to go into a fight against that if you've got just a handgun. That's not a fair fight. So get the assault weapons out.
I want to bring in Robert Shentrup. Robert lost his sister Carmen in the shooting last week. She was 16. She was a National Merit semifinalist. Robert's question is for Congressman Deutch. Robert?
Congressman Deutch, today would have been Carmen's 17th birthday. But sadly, we are having to celebrate her life instead of celebrating what a new year might bring. My question is, if a majority of Americans have long supported stricter gun control regulations, but our elected officials, who are supposed to represent the people, have done nothing, does this mean that our democracy is broken?
First of all, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. What you're doing here is celebrating her life. What you're doing in asking that question is honoring her memory. And let me be pretty straightforward about that. Is our democracy broken? A little bit. A little bit it is. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, when it comes, you said it's widely supported. There was a poll that came out yesterday that showed that 97%, which when you add in the margin of error, is everyone in America, supports universal background checks. Now, so there, look, I don't have a good answer for why something that's supported by 100% of the American people hasn't been passed. Instead, look, there's a bill, Senator Rubio talked about the bill, the president talked about this bill that's going to make sure that they're talking about expanding background checks, making sure that everyone complies with what needs to be in the background check. Great, let's do that. But you know what else we need to do? Make sure that every single person in America who buys a gun has a background check. And secondly, look, this is a bigger issue. Is our democracy broken? When any organization spends tens of millions of dollars promoting the interests of gun corporations to influence what happens in our elections, then yes, our democracy is a little broken. But the way... But here's the beauty of our democracy. No matter how much money the NRA spends on political campaigns, millions and millions of dollars spent trying to convince people that representing the interests of gun companies is more important than standing up for the safety of the people of America, no matter how much they spend, here's why our democracy is great. Because everything we've seen from the 3,300 survivors of Marjory Stoneman Douglas, the leadership that has been shown is leading a movement that is so much stronger than money spent in political campaigns. That's why the democracy can be fixed and will be fixed.
I want to bring in Cameron Kasky. He's a junior, and he has a question for Senator Rubio. Cameron?
Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna listen to that. Senator Rubio, it's hard to look at you and not look down the barrel of an AR-15 and not look at Nicholas Cruz. But the point is, you're here, and there are some people who are not. And I need to ask two things of you. Number one, Chris Grady, can you stand up? This is my friend who's going to the military. I need you to tell him that he's going to live to make it to serve our country. And then we'll get to the other one.
Not only are you going to live to serve our country, you and all of you have a chance to change our country. Change not just our laws, but the way we talk about our laws. So absolutely.
Thank you. And guys, look, this isn't about red and blue. We can't boo people because they're Democrats and boo people because they're Republicans. Anyone who's willing to show change, no matter where they're from, anybody who's willing to start to make a difference is somebody we need on our side here. And this is about people who are for making a difference to save us and people who are against it and prefer money. So, Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future? I wish I could have asked the NRA lady a question. I wish the NRA lady I could have talked to, because I would ask her how she can look in the mirror, considering the fact that she has children, but maybe she avoids those.
What is that? I'm sorry?
I don't freaking know.
That's okay. The question is about NRA money.
So number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment. And I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe. And I do support any law that would keep guns out of the hands of a deranged killer. And that's why I support the things that I have stood for and fought for during my time there.
NRA money? More NRA money?
That is the wrong way to look. First of all, the answer is people buy into my agenda.
You can say no.
Number second, well,
Guys,
the influence of any group,
we're going to be here all night.
The influence of these groups comes not from money. The influence comes from the millions of people that agree with the agenda. So the millions of Americans that support the NRA and who support gun rights groups.
Senator.
Guys, if you...
Cameron is having a conversation with Senator Rubio. Let's let them talk.
Listen, I respect... You can ask that question, and I can tell you that people buy into my agenda. I will answer any questions you guys have about any policy
right now, guys, be quiet. And
I just think that ultimately, that is not our goal here. Our goal here is to move forward.
Wait, so hold on. So right now, in the name of 17 people, you cannot ask the NRA to keep their money out of your campaign?
I think in the name of 17 people, I can pledge to you that I will support any law that will prevent a killer like this.
No, but I'm talking NRA money.
No, because...
matter of fact, I bet we can get people in here to give you exactly as much money as the NRA would have.
But it's not. I understand. And you're right.
Can you stand up and donate to that real quick? Okay, not a lot, but we'll get it. I'll do it.
You're right about that.
Quite a bit of money so far.
Well, you're right about that. There's money on both sides of every issue in America. And where that leaves us in policymaking is to look at the issues and make a decision based on what we think is right. But ultimately, look, the First Amendment is as important as the Second. And therefore, you have every right to ask that question of me, and I'm here to tell you that I will stand for the things... Are you going to be
accepting money from the NRA in the future?
I've always supported... I will always accept the help of anyone who agrees with my agenda. But my agenda is... I'll give you a perfect example.
Your agenda is protecting us, right?
Well, I'll give you an example this very evening. I have told you that I support lifting the age from 18 to 21 of buying a rifle. My understanding, as before I walked out here, is that that organization is not in favor of that. But I think that's the right thing to do. I don't know what their position is on teachers being armed, but I don't think they should be, because that's what I think the right thing to do is. When I offered my bill to restrict people on the terrorist watch list or that have been on the list for the last 10 years from purchasing a weapon, they didn't take a stand. I don't think they certainly didn't support but I offered it. I will do what I think is right. And if people want to support my agenda, they're welcome to do so, but they buy into my ideas. I don't buy into theirs.
Okay, so I knew that was going to happen. NRA, please just keep the money out of Rubio, okay? If he wants to run again, you guys
can. Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate it. Stay with us. More survivors of the shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School. Stand up. Next. Welcome back to the BB&T Center in Florida and CNN's Town Hall with the students and families and faculty of Stoneman Douglas High School. Next week, students are going to return to campus for the first time since the shooting. Our next question comes from first-year student Michelle Lapito. She has a question for Senator Nelson. Michelle?
I just wanted to start with, my school is not going to be just another statistic in the 18 shootings that happened this year, but my school is going to be the last and the beginning of gun control. Stoneman Douglas is strong and will be heard because our kids and our staff did not die for nothing. They died for change, and they died for each other. Their deaths will not be taken in vain, but as a calling for the change, gun control, and safety in America. They're watching us from heaven, and we are going to save what they died to protect. So I had a question for Ms. Loesch, but she's not here yet. So for her and the NRA, she's probably watching, and all of you puppet politicians that they are backing, was the blood of my classmates and my teachers worth your blood money?
Senator Nelson, you don't have to answer that question. Let's move on to the next question.
Excuse me? I'm a student. I should have.
I know. I understand that, but your question. I thought you were going to ask Senator Nelson a question. Your question sounds like you wanted to ask Dana Loesch a question in the next segment, and I'm happy to do that if you want.
It's actually fine. I had another question for you, Senator Nelson.
Okay, let's do that then.
So I'm going to have to go back to school, onto the same campus, to the same building, to pick up my stuff, to resume my classes, to keep studying, and I'm never going to feel safe on another public school campus ever again. I never want to have to go through and feel like I'm putting myself in such a vulnerable situation ever, because that was one of the worst moments of my life. So why don't we consider the worst possible scenarios? Because these things have been happening all around the country, and it's more common than winning any lottery. Why don't we assume the worst situation like we do on planes, where we have life vests in case we land in the ocean, or slides in case we need to do an emergency crash? Why don't we have Kevlar vests in classrooms for our students? Why don't we build our walls with Kevlar so that kids aren't being shot through their own walls because they're so cheaply built? Why don't we have more funding to protect ourselves? Why do you guys protect yourselves with guns, protect yourselves with vests, and you protect America's children with nothing but drywall?
And my answer is, why don't we get the assault rifles off the street? Why don't we do the criminal background checks so that you have much more of a measure of security when you go to school? No, you shouldn't have to have Kevlar vest. That's part of being in America, and that's what your school board, your teachers, your principal, they have done so effectively, is they try to protect you and even stand in the way of bullets to protect you. That is not a fear that you should have. And although we are all grieving right now, this is a very tough time, there is a great strength that is coming out in the voices that are being spoken here, and you've got to let that strength overrule the fears. But at the same time, you've got to continue to be strong and speak out. I said earlier, your hope gives me hope. Your determination gives me more determination to see this through and get some common sense laws with regard to guns in America.
Thank you, Senator.
Why it had to take so many students' lives, so many teachers' lives, all of this for it to change. Why does it have to take so many? By the first time, it should have been changed. But it's gone this far.
Let me just add one other thing.
You lost a future Olympic medalist whose funeral I was supposed to be attending, but you know what? Change is more important because that's what they would have wanted. Why did it have to take so much blood to be spilt so much money for you guys to gain from not answering the question, Mr. Rubio. Why is this happening? Why hasn't this changed already? Why do we have to be the last school? Why wasn't it the first school, the last school?
And you could ask the same question, why 2 years ago, when 49 lives were taken in the Pulse nightclub and nothing was done? Not in Washington, not in Tallahassee, not one thing offered by the administration in Tallahassee. And here we are going through this again. And it's going to, unfortunately, very possibly continue unless we get some common sense laws on the book.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. I want to bring Chris Grady back. Cameron introduced us all to him. He's a senior, and he recently enlisted in the Army, and thank you for that, Chris Grady. And he has a question for Senator Rubio.
I would just like to thank you again for coming out and listening to us, because that's a lot more than what can be said for our so-called president and governor. I believe I speak for myself and my colleagues in the Never Again movement when I say, though we might not see eye to eye on a lot of these issues, we need you and your colleagues on both sides to come together with us and find compromise if we are to ever to solve this epidemic that is, this epidemic that is plaguing our country. Senator Rubio, I believe a big issue when it comes to the debate about semi-automatic weapons and automatic weapons is large capacity magazines. Would you agree that there is no place in our society for large capacity magazines capable of firing over from 15 to 30 rounds, and if not more?
First, let me thank you for your willingness to serve our country. You're doing it tonight, and you're going to do it in uniform, and we're very grateful to you. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I traditionally have not supported looking at magazine clip size. And after this and some of the details I've learned about it, I'm reconsidering that position, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because while it may not prevent an attack, it may save lives in an attack. And I'll let the authorities discuss at the appropriate time why I say that. But suffice it to say that I believe that there will be evidence that at a key moment in this incident, three or four people might be alive today because of something that this deranged killer had to do. And obviously it's not for me to make law enforcement announcements. I don't know what the right number is. I know that there are, for example, handguns that have 17. And so we'll have to get into that debate. But that is something that I believe we can reach a compromise in this country, and that I'm willing to reconsider. Because I do believe that in this instance, it wouldn't have prevented the attack, but it made it less lethal. And that's the kind of thing that I hope my colleagues, and that's why these discussions are important, because they do lead you to rethink positions after you've taken new information and new input from people. By the way, American politics is the only part of our lives where changing your mind based on new information is a bad thing. We do it in every other aspect of our lives. And we have to stop doing that as well. So that is an issue I'll look into, absolutely.
Thank you, Senator. There's no question that the Republican Party is more allied with the NRA than the Democratic Party, but it also is worth pointing out that the Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2009 and 2010, and gun control was not a priority. That's just a fact. Senator Nelson, was that a mistake by your party?
Yes. When the Senate had 60 votes, as we did until Ted Kennedy died, that's how we got the Affordable Care Act passed. And yes, gun legislation under those circumstances should have been considered, because there had been a lot of massacres up to that point. It was Sandy Hook that occurred later in the Obama administration that a lot of people thought would be the turning point, because of these little first, second, and third graders gunned down. And yet, nothing was done. And then you go through all the other shootings. And so I can tell you that in the meantime, until we do get 60 votes again in the US Senate, when we can guarantee that we would get the legislation through, I'm going to continue to work with my colleagues, and specifically Senator Rubio, to see whatever we can get. The hard reality is that there are not a majority of senators, primarily the ones that have been supported financially by the NRA. There's not a majority of senators that are going to be willing to do a lot. I'm glad what Senator Rubio has said here tonight, that he is willing to rethink his positions. And so I'm looking forward to doing everything that we can and accomplish as much as we can, given the circumstances politically that we're in.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Sheriff Senator.
And, and Senator Nelson said in the meantime. The meantime doesn't mean in the next 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. It means in the next few weeks. On Monday, when we return to Washington, D.C., we're going to try to do this thing called unanimous consent, where basically you don't even really have a vote. It's just unless any senator objects, it passes a law to fix the background check. I believe there are 60 votes to ban bump stocks. I believe that we could potentially have 60 votes at the federal level to change the age from 18 to 21 on the purchase of any rifles. I believe, and I know you're a co-sponsor of the Safe School Act, it's the Safe School Act that's been filed by a member of Congress from Florida that is going to be filed on Monday. Right. It's going to be filed on Monday by Senator Hatch of Utah that I believe we can also pass in the Senate. So there are things that we can begin to do on issues that there is consensus on. My biggest fear remains that our attention span in this country on virtually every issue is 7 to 10 days, and then we pivot. You know, we're one tweet away or one story away from focusing on something else. And we cannot continue on an issue of this important to allow that to happen. And so I do think we can make progress.
Congressman, next question's for you.
Great.
So I'll let you stand up. I want to bring in Annabelle Quinn Clapperud. She's a sophomore. She was in the building while the shooting occurred, and she has a question for you.
Hi. When it comes to the safety and security of our students in our schools, how come there aren't equal methods of protection deployed to all schools despite their social infrastructure, crime rates, and median income?
This is a pretty straightforward question. Every school should have the security that's necessary to keep the students safe. Every school in every part of the community. So that's pretty straightforward. But there's a lot more that we have to do, and I want to talk about, as part of this, just for a second, the debate that we've heard, because I've got to tell you, it sounds, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's starting to sound like what we've always heard before. And here's the thing. It's not a 5K. It's a sprint right now for the people in this community. The fact is banning bump stocks, something that converts a semi-automatic weapon into a killing machine, we don't need to think about that. We need to do it next week. Next week.
Thank you.
And fixing the background checks again. Senator Rubio, I appreciate the effort to pass legislation that the NRA can live with, that helps with the background check, but it doesn't require everyone to get one. That's not complicated. Yes, ma'am.
Will my school campus be safe when I return? Because I plan to not return until I know that something is going to change. And I'm not the only one.
I can tell you that the commitment from Superintendent Runcie and from Sheriff Israel and from law enforcement and from your teachers and from everyone who is focused on school security is going to do everything they can to make sure that it is safe when you go back. But the real issue is that you have to ask that question. Sorry? Well then if there were issues that happened yesterday, then those issues need to get fixed before Marjory Stoneman Douglas gets reopened. That's absolutely right. Look, I can tell you that we need to have the community come together. Everyone who's involved in security needs to be involved to make sure that your school is safe. And everyone who cares about the safety of the schools, who represents you either in Tallahassee or in Washington, also has to do everything they can to make sure that you're safe. And when Congress goes back next week, we need to move forward. We need to take care of the bump stock ban. We need to have universal background checks. We have to pass the bill that says if you're too dangerous to fly, then you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. All of those things should be done next week. And here's the last thing. The discussion that's taking place here tonight is important. It's really important for everyone here to hear it. But the reason things are going to be different this time is because the people in this room and the people around the country who are inspired by the people in this room, and that's high school students and college students and adults in every part of the country, they're not going to let this debate just go back. They're not going to simply go back and let us go to Washington and have panels and discussions and hearings. The time, I said it at the beginning, Jake, I just got to say it again. The time for talking about how we fix things in Washington when it comes to guns is over. It's over. We know what we have to do. This is not, and I want to just finish with this is not a partisan issue. I've spoken to so many Republicans, so many in this room, who have said, look, at this point, there is one issue and one issue only that I am focused on, and that is making sure that we take action to keep our kids and our schools safe and to get dangerous weapons of war off of our streets. That has to be our priority, and we've got to do it now.
Thank you, Congressman. I want to thank Senator Rubio, Senator Nelson, and Congressman Deutch. Your presence here tonight has made a tremendous impression on all of us. And as Senator Rubio said, minds have been opened tonight. When we come back, a national spokesperson for the NRA will be here. The Broward County Sheriff will be here to answer the students' questions face to face. Stay with us. Welcome back to CNN's Town Hall with the students and families and faculty of Stoneman Douglas High School. In the days following the shooting, many students expressed their frustration about one group, the NRA. Dana Loesch is the national spokesperson for the NRA. She is here with us, along with Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. We're going to be asking them questions in this segment. Sheriff Israel, I do want to start with you about a question that was asked earlier. You ordered today that a deputy or deputies in Broward County will be present at Douglas School, but also at schools throughout Broward County, carrying rifles, armed. This afternoon, President Trump suggested that teachers, we should think about arming them as well. We discussed that a little bit here earlier. I'm wondering what you, as a law enforcement officer, what you think.
I don't believe teachers should be armed. I believe teachers should teach. But that's exactly what's wrong with this country. We have people in Washington, D.C., representatives, senators, and legislators telling teachers what they should do without asking teachers, what do you want to do?
Okay. I want to bring in right now Senior Emma Gonzalez. She has a question. She has a question for Dana.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Foster for teaching us everything we learned. I could not have written that speech without you. Half of that was like directly from notes, and I want to thank you for that. Second of all, oh, I had a thing I was going to say. Happens to the best of us. All right. Dana Loesch, I want you to know that we will support your 2 children in the way that you will not. The shooter at our school obtained weapons that he used on us legally. Do you believe that it should be harder to obtain these semi-automatic and weapons and the modifications for these weapons to make them fully automatic, like bump stocks?
Well, first off, Emma, I want to applaud you for standing up and speaking out. And for anyone who has ever criticized you or any of these students up here, including people who have been on my side of this issue, I don't think that anyone should deny you your voice or deny you your position because you are young.
We want to thank you for that.
I was a very politically active teenager, and I'm on this stage as a result of that. Think of how far you all could go as a result of voicing your beliefs. Now, I want to answer your question, and I want to be allowed the opportunity, which is why I am here, to talk and have this discussion with you all and answer these questions. This is why I came down here. I don't believe that this insane monster should have ever been able to obtain a firearm, ever. I do not think that he should have gotten his hands on any kind of weapon. That's number one. This individual was nuts. And I, nor the millions of people that I represent as a part of this organization that I'm here speaking for, none of us support people who are crazy, who are a danger to themselves, who are a danger to others, getting their hands on a firearm. And we have been for over 20 years, and I have been screaming about this, which is why I'm here, because I have kids, and I'm not just fighting for my kids, I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting for all of you, because I don't want anyone to ever be in this position again. I want everyone to think about this for 1 second. This goes right into your question. Do you know that it is not federally required for states to actually report people who are prohibited possessors, crazy people, people who are murderers? No? We've been actually talking about that for a long time. Let me answer the question. Let me answer the question. You can shout me down when I'm finished, but let me answer Emma's question. It is not federal law for states to report convictions to the NICS system. It's not federally mandated. That's the big question, and I wish that this network had also covered this more as other media networks would have covered it. That's a huge, wait a second.
You guys, if I can't hear her statement, I can't come up with a rebuttal. Please.
Wait a second. Do you guys want to stop mentally insane individuals from getting firearms? You better not get one now. Yes? They have to be in the system. If they are convicted, you can convict them, you can adjudicate them mentally unfit. If a state does not report it to the National Crime Information Center, when you run that form, this individual this madman passed a background check. How was he able to pass a background check? He was able to pass a background check because we have a system that's flawed. The Sutherland Springs murderer was able to pass a background check because the Air Force did not report that record.
I think I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick and remind you that the question is actually, do you believe it should be harder to obtain these semi-automatic weapons and modifications to make them fully automatic, such as bump stocks?
Well, I think the ATF is deciding about bump stocks right now. The president ordered the DOJ to look into it.
I'm asking your opinion as a representative of the NRA.
That's what the NRA's position has been. The NRA I'm talking for them. These are the 5 million members that I'm here representing. That is what that group's position has been on that. So that answers your question. And they spoke about that before the president made a move, and they spoke about that before Attorney General Jeff Sessions made an announcement about that too. So that answers your question with that.
Just to interject for a second though, and I understand you're standing up for the NRA, and I understand that's what you're supposed to do. But you just told this group of people that you are standing up for them. You're not standing up for them until you say, I want less weapons. These people want 3 things. And I come here tonight with 39 years in law enforcement. I've Baker-acted people. I've taken weapons from people. the men and women I've worked with for almost 40 years, we know how to keep America safe. Number one, we have to, you're right, we have to take weapons out of the hands of people that suffer from mental illness. We have to expand the Baker Act. We have to be able, when police encounter someone, Emma, when police encounter someone who is going through a mental illness, we don't only have to wait, or we shouldn't have to wait until they are a danger to themselves or someone else. We should be able to take them to an institution that's going to examine them and take weapons away from them right then and there at that time.
And Sheriff, you're a member of the NRA, yes? No, you're not a member of the NRA. I want to bring in Diane Wolk-Rogers, who teaches AP World History. One of the victims, Carmen Shentrup, was in her class, and she has a question for Dana as well.
Dana, I viewed the dead body of Carmen Shentrup, our student. I watched her mother and father kiss her goodbye one last time and close the top of her casket. I looked at Robert and I hugged him, my dear, dear Robert, and I told you that Carmen, she died a martyr. Our kids have started a revolution. I'm proud and I'm inspired to be a part of Never Again. Now here's my question. I'm a history teacher. I asked my students to define terms for me. So I'd like you to define something for me, because I've wondered about it, and I want to know, what is your definition of a well-regulated militia, as stated in the Second Amendment, and using supporting detail, explain to me how Let me finish. And using supporting detail, explain to me how an 18-year-old with a military rifle is well regulated. And the world, our country, our nation is going to grade your answer.
Well, by all means. And I want to say as well, as a parent, I see my kids and these students. I see my kids and the students that are here today. What you went through is horrid. I'm not going to pretend to understand what you went through. There are no words for it. It's monstrous, and nobody should have to endure that. I want to answer your question. George Mason was one of the founders, and he said, the militia is the whole of the people. It's every man, it's every woman. That is who the militia is. In the context of the time, a well-regulated militia meant an American man and American woman, a citizen of the United States of America, who could operate and service their firearm.
How is an 18-year-old, that was in the context of the time.
Yes.
How now is an 18-year-old with a military assault rifle well-regulated? Use supporting detail.
Right. He shouldn't have been able to get a firearm. He should have been barred from getting a firearm. And he should not have been able to. He should not have been able to purchase a firearm.
So what are you, the men, are going to do about it?
Let me answer. If we're here to have a discussion, that's why I'm here. I want you to ask me every question. I want you to give me every question you have.
Let's have some respect. She's here to answer the questions. Let's let her answer the questions.
He should, A, never been able to get a firearm. B, people who are crazy should not be able to get firearms. C, people who are dangerous to themselves and other individuals should not be able to obtain a firearm. There isn't a loophole. It's a criminal act, and that's what we have to start calling it. We have to start, number one, following up on red flags. 39 times in the past year, It was law enforcement or it was social services that went to this individual's home. Now, there are 2 Florida statutes. One of them, I don't know if the comment that he had put on YouTube would have qualified for you to Baker Act him, but sending messages telling other students that he was going to murder them and he was going to kill them, I would think certainly would qualify under a Florida state statute for you to have Baker Acted him.
Let me respond to that. First of all, we've talked about the Broward Sheriff's Office and some other local agencies and the FBI getting tips and what have you. America, there's one person responsible for this act. That's the detestable, violent killer. He is responsible for this act. Nobody else but him. There's 3 things we need to do in America to keep America safe. Number 1, we have to use through crime prevention, through environmental design, build schools differently so they're harder to penetrate. Number 2, we need to be empowering police officers and deputy sheriffs throughout the nation to be able to take people who are an immediate threat to themselves or an immediate threat to someone else to be examined. And we need to take guns away from them forever. They should never get them back. They should have to go through a psychological evaluation. And if we have a doctor or a clinician have to sign their John Hancock and say that person should be given back their Second Amendment right, we're not going to see doctors do that. But lastly, we do need to have some gun control reform. 18-year-olds should never have a rifle. An 18-year-old kid should not have a rifle. 18-year-old kid, they're not adults yet. They're in high school. These kids should not have a rifle. Bump stocks should be illegal. They should be outlawed forever. Automatic rifles should be outlawed forever. And anybody who says different, I don't know about other people, but Emma and I, we're calling BS on that.
So. Earlier tonight, I'm going right to you. Earlier tonight, Senator Rubio said that he supported the notion of raising the legal purchasing age from 18 to 21 for semi-automatic weapons. That is not the position of the NRA. Why is it not your position?
Well, it's not the position of the NRA because I think that if we are asking young men and women to go and serve their country, that they should be able to also have a firearm. I'm also thinking of young women.
There is a military exemption. There is a military exemption.
True, but with specifically where it relates to long guns, because it's 21 for handguns, 18 for long guns. But I also think of young women, and you've had a previous town hall where you spoke with a young woman named Kim Corbin, who was a college student who was brutally raped in her dorm, and she was under the age of 21. And one of the things that she speaks out about loudly now is how she wished she would have had the ability to be able to have a shotgun, whatever it was, to be able to defend herself. I was 20 years old when I lived on my own. I didn't live with my parents when I was 20. I lived on my own when I was 20 years old. And I didn't, well, not at first, but I mean, I had a shotgun. But I think that we have to take that into consideration. We have to think about individuals. I mean, if you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to drive a car, you're old enough to serve your country, I think that you are old enough if, now here's the caveat, if anyone wants to listen to the caveat. The caveat though, Jake, and for everybody out there, is if you are not a danger to yourself or others. That's what it comes back to. If you are not a threat to yourself or your community, that is what it comes back to.
Hey, Chris, you're serving. How do you feel? You're going to the military. You're 18. How do you feel about that?
That's okay. I want to go to Alyssa. I'm sorry. I want to go to Lori Alhadeff, who lost her daughter, Alyssa, in the shooting. Alyssa was 14. She was a soccer player. And Lori has a question for Dana. Lori.
Please hold all applause to the end. Wake up, America. Fight for the survival of your children. Fight for the right to go to school and to feel safe. No child should ever turn to their mother at 6 years of age and ask, "Mommy, am I going to die today?" My name is Lori Alhadeff. My daughter is Alyssa Alhadeff. She lost her life at school, shot 3 times, and she was not able to be identified until 2 a.m. on the morning of February 15th, along with 16 other parents who lost their children. I am tired of people doing nothing. This horrific incident has to be the catalyst that finally puts things in action. Let's make our schools safe again. Hashtag Alyssa Alhadeff. In 2013, the NRA released a 225-page report to call for more security at schools. It detailed security guards, teacher training, bomb-sniffing dogs, expanded police presence in schools. Here we are 5 years later, and nothing has been done. Our teachers need to be properly trained to teach our children how to handle a code red. We can visually mark hiding areas in the classrooms to protect our children from being gunned down. Where are our metal detectors? Where is our bulletproof glass? Where are children's ID badges with the photos, names, and the ability to open locked doors? Where are the new versions of Amber Alerts before school safety? Where are the lists of things to do and the ability to do them that every school needs to have in order to provide safety for our kids? Where is the funding to protect the ones who will be the future of our nation? Who is funding the safety protocols? How are state and federal teams working together? How do the local police forces support our schools? Who will lead the programs to pass new laws that require security cameras, bulletproof shields in classrooms, more drills for teachers to help manage things such as things that they have faced? Where are the school psychologists? Who is helping to put a plan for that in place? And why hasn't anything been done since Sandy Hook? How many more of these do we need to endure before something happens? We need an emergency meeting now. Put politics aside and put our children first. I don't want to see another parent lose a child in this senseless way. I want us to all send our kids to school with the feeling of security. In the name of #Alyssa Al-Hadef and the 16 others who lost their lives, and the thousands who were traumatized and are speaking up for their rights, we must bring about change, clear calls to action to make our schools safe again. How do the NRA and lawmakers work together? Who is going to pay for this? What is the plan to put things into action? These are my questions, and we all want a clear answer. Enough talk! What is your action?
So, in 2013, the NRA did release its National School Shield Task Force.
Yes.
Major recommendations. What did happen with them?
150 schools across the country have implemented them so far. It's up to the schools and the parents of those schools if they want to use those resources and they want to use those suggestions in order to, as this mother was suggesting, and those were great questions. The NRA has also partnered with law enforcement. In fact, it's this organization is one of the biggest partners of law enforcement. We've trained thousands of law enforcement members all across the country, and we're still expanding. And this is one of the things that I want to make clear as well. I think it's up to schools and parents to determine what they want to do in their schools. The NRA is not going to make that decision. If they want to have armed guards, if they want to have retired military, if they choose and teachers volunteer to be armed, I think that's up to each individual school and the parents of that school district. But if they also want a solution that doesn't involve firearms, if they want to talk about checkpoint systems, if they want to talk about reinforcing doors, the NRA, our resources are at their disposal. That's what School Shield was created for.
Sheriff?
I agree with what Dana said, but I think the problem is too many people want to do the same old, same old. The author said that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. We as this country, we need to do something different. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But let's try doing something different. Let's try and set, if you have a football team and they're getting burnt deep, you're going to not let the same receiver beat the, you're going to give them some help. You're going to bring a safety over the top. You're going to do something different. And what I think we need to do in America is something different and have less guns on our streets, not more guns.
I'm just going to give Dana the chance to rebut, and then we'll go to the next question.
We had 3 lawmakers on this stage, and only one of them hinted at reinforcing the background check system. It is only as good as the record submitted to it. Only one of them even got anywhere close to mentioning that. We have to have more than 38 states submit records. That's number one. Number two, we have to develop better protocol to follow up on red flags. This monster carrying bullets to school, carrying knives to school, assaulting students, assaulting his parents, 39 visits in the past year, that should never have been allowed to get that far. And I don't have the authority or the resources to follow up on that. If you want to give me the authority and resources, I'll follow up on those red flags. But I don't have that authority to do so. This is why we have to start asking these questions. I want to see your network ask these questions. I want to see these headlines in the media more. We have to follow up on protocol, and why are the states not complying with this law?
So let's talk about red flags. The next question comes from Jim Gard. He's a math teacher. He had taught 3 of the victims, and he has a question for Sheriff Israel.
Sheriff Israel, as far as I know, the FBI would be the expert organization and would have the experience and know-how to take tips, conduct an investigation, and conclude whether to act or not to act on such tips. It seems as though the FBI certainly had enough cause to investigate the case prior to the 17 murders. It's fair to say that people are disgusted with the inaction of this organization. Why were these tips considered unimportant enough to not have further action? Who would make this decision? As the FBI apologized for their failure to act upon these tips, who ultimately would be the person who decided that this now very relevant case was irrelevant?
So, Sheriff, obviously this is a question for the FBI. I want to point out that we did invite the FBI director and somebody from the field office in Miami to come here tonight to answer your questions. They declined, but their excuse is that this is part of an ongoing investigation. But if you would address what you can about the red flags, not just the tips called into the FBI, but also the visits by the police to the shooter's house. How does that, Dana's talking about getting those red flags into some sort of system to prevent that person from being able to buy a firearm. How would that work? It obviously didn't in this case. How should it work?
Yeah, let me start out by saying that if we had this conversation 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I would say the primary group of people, the primary industry that's going to protect our children are law enforcement. Now I actually believe it's the lawmakers. Things have to change in Washington, D.C., Tallahassee, and state capitals to make these changes. The Broward Sheriff's Office, we received tips, numerous tips on this killer. Some we answered by phone, some were out of state, some we went out there. Our command staff are actually looking into some of these tips to make sure we did everything right. If we made a mistake, I'll act accordingly and deal with it. The person responsible is the agent or the detective or the person who received the tip and didn't exercise their due diligence and took it where they needed to be. All that being said, what I'm asking the lawmakers to give police all over this country is more power. In Florida, we call it a Baker Act. It allows us to take an individual to be against their will, involuntarily, to go to a mental health facility and be treated. What I'm saying is if a police officer that we pay a good salary to keep us safe feels that the totality of circumstances, the computer, the bedroom, the pictures, the photographs, speaking to the friends, if we feel the totality of the circumstances rises to the level where we're concerned this person might be mentally ill, we need the power to take every firearm they have away from them and bring them to a mental health facility.
39 visits did not meet that standard? 39 visits, assaulting students, assaulting parents, taking bullets and knives to school. Did that not meet that standard?
Well, which are you speaking about specifically? You seem to know about all 39.
Well, I know there's one Florida statute where if he's sending messages threatening, if he's sending messages threatening to kill people, that right there, under Florida state law.
Who did he send the message to kill people to?
BuzzFeed, AP, Reuters, Yahoo News all reported that was to other students.
Who was the victim?
It was sent to other students.
Dana, Reuters can't be a victim. The only person who could be a victim is an individual.
Sheriff, is what I'm saying.
So if an individual was threatened and it was real, that's a crime. But if he's posting things...
They were threatened with death. They were threatened that they were going to bleed. They were threatened that they were going to be killed.
Well, what's your specific case?
And he had already taken bullets and knives to school. He had already assaulted people. He assaulted his parent. He assaulted other students. 39 visits. And this was known to the intelligence and law enforcement community. Now, I'm not saying that you can be everywhere at once, but this is what I'm talking about. We have to follow up on these red flags.
You're not the litmus test.
Doesn't that meet the standard?
You're absolutely not the litmus test for how law enforcement should follow up. You're wrong. There weren't 39 visits. Some of them, they were GOA. Some of them called from other states. To say there were 39 visits, I don't know where you got those facts, but you're completely wrong.
Did they report it inaccurately?
They reported it inaccurately, but if you're going to stand up in front of a national audience, you shouldn't rely on a media.
This is what I'm asking.
It's incorrect. We are looking at every single case we got. We are following up on it. We will decide and discern what deputies did, what investigators did, and I will handle it accordingly, and people will be punished if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But that being said, the power of police is not as great as it should be. We need to take people out of their homes and involuntarily Baker Act them if the totality of circumstances rise and they're not an immediate threat to themselves or someone else. But here's the most important point. If you and I our sport was tennis and we tore our ACLs, the doctor would say, surgery was successful, you're released from the hospital. We can't go back and play tennis the next day. We need to rehabilitate. When we release an individual from a mental health facility, they're not ready to go out and carry a gun. They have to rehabilitate, and that's a year process, a 2-year process, and they should never be around firearms. That's where I agree with you. It's making sure people, but it's not one thing anymore. It's 3 or 4 things. It's building schools differently. It's having our mayors and our commissioners give more money to police, more money to fires, and more money to school teachers. Those are the most underpaid people in the world.
And funding to reinforce schools.
Exactly, yes.
I want to go now to Linda Beagle-Shulman. She lost her son, Scott Beagle. He was a geography teacher who died protecting his students, and she has a question for Dana. Linda.
Dana, the Second Amendment was ratified in 1791. The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, which gave my son the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I ask you, why are my son's unalienable rights not protected as fiercely as the right to bear arms?
I'm sorry for what you experienced. And I'm not going to, as I said, I'm a parent, but I have not been in this position. And as a parent, it terrifies me, to be honest with you. It's terrifying. Now, you asked whether it's a life or firearms or life or Second Amendment thing. I think that all life should be protected. All life should be protected. That's why next week there's going to be good guys with guns that are going to be in school protecting lives, just as there's armed security here. We are in the presence of firearms protecting lives. This isn't if you believe in your right to self-defense, you hate kids, or if you believe in your right to self-defense, you don't believe that people have the right to live. That's not what this issue is. This issue is about making sure that we're protecting innocent lives. No innocent lives should be lost. None of them should.
When the Second Amendment was ratified, they were talking about muskets. We're not talking about muskets. We're talking about assault weapons. We're talking about weapons of mass destruction that kill people.
On that issue, at the time, there were fully automatic firearms that were available, the Belton gun and the Puckle gun, and in fact, the Continental Congress reviewed a purchase of one of those firearms for the...
Doesn't make it right.
Well, what I'm saying is there was more than just muskets available. We don't say that no one has a right to free speech because... of Twitter or social media. But the point that you raised, and I think it's a good one, and I know what you're saying, and believe me, I understand that. I think all innocent lives should be protected. I don't think that you should have ever had to gone through that. If I could change time and change circumstances, I would have done everything in my power to prevent that.
I think you have that power.
Sheriff, did you want to weigh in?
Columbine, Sandy Hook, Stoneman Douglas, and a host of other tragedies. Doing it the same way isn't working. And I could tell you, you're not going to change, with all due respect, and I think you're an amazing woman, you're not going to change her mind. There's only one way to make America safely. What you're going to have to do, as I said, this young generation, we didn't get it done, but you will get it done. Vote in people who feel the same way you do. This is the 8th tragedy. The 8th tragedy where we have seen numerous tips that have been reported and red flags that I mean, are we talking about prevention or not? I mean, I think it's incredibly important.
Keep going.
In Charleston, they had to come out and say that it was a paperwork error, that this individual was a prohibited possessor. In South Carolina, you have to be charged with a felony, not just convicted, but charged with a felony. And he should have never been able to purchase a firearm. The worst school shooting with the murderer in Virginia, this individual was court ordered to undergo mental health evaluations, and he slipped through the cracks. He would have never been able to purchase if this had been known. This is what I'm talking about in terms of prevention and making sure that people who are dangerous should not have access to firearms without punishing law-abiding Americans who want to be able to have that same right to defend themselves.
I want to thank Dana Loesch of the NRA and also Sheriff Scott Israel for being here to listen to your questions. When we come back, a powerful moment with the students of Stoneman Douglas that you will not want to miss. Please stay with us. Welcome back to CNN's Town Hall with the students and the families and the faculty of Stoneman Douglas High School. We're going to close out the evening with two very special contributions from members of your community. The first is a poem that was written by the late Alex Schachter, and it will be read by his father, Max. After the poem, students from Douglas Drama will perform a song called Shine that they wrote this week to honor their friends after the shooting. Max?
Two weeks ago, Alex was assigned a poem for a literary fair. He decided to write about roller coasters because Alex loved roller coasters. He wasn't writing about his life and had no idea his poem would become his future. Ryan, my son over in the red shirt, wearing the Stoneman Douglas Eagle Regiment shirt, read this beautiful poem at Alex's funeral, and now I would like to read it to you because it's amazing, I love it, and I want everyone to hear Alex's words. Life is like a roller coaster, a free verse poem by Alex Schachter. Life is like a roller coaster. It has some ups and downs. Sometimes you can take it slow or very fast. It may be hard to breathe at times, but you have to push yourself and keep going. Your bar is your safety. It's like your family and friends. You hold on tight and you don't let go. But sometimes you might throw your hands up because your friends and family will always be with you. Just like that bar keeping you safe at all times. It may be too much for you at times, the twists, the turns, the upside downs, but you get back up, you keep chugging along. Eventually it comes to a stop. You won't know when or how, but you will know that it will be time to get off and start anew. Life is like a roller coaster.
You threw my city away. You tore down the walls and opened up all the gates.
You ruined this town. You burned all of the bridges and you slowly let us drown.
But you're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we are stronger and we're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine the light, and whoa, we will be something special. Whoa, we're gonna shine.
We're gonna stand tall. Gonna raise up our voices so we'll never ever fall.
We're done with all your little games. We're tired of hearing that we're too young to ever make a change. 'Cause you're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we'll be stronger, and you're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine a light. We can hug a little tighter, we can love a little more, laugh a little harder, we can stand up and roar. If we all come together, it will be alright. Stand up for one another and we'll never give up the fight.
We refuse to be ignored by those who will not listen. There are so many things you can do to become involved. Reach out to your congressman, mail, call, and tweet.
The smallest of words can make the biggest difference.
Be the voice for those who don't have one.
Together we have the power to change the world around us.
You're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we'll be stronger, and we're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine the light. You're not gonna knock us down. We'll get back up again. You may have hurt us, but I promise we'll be stronger, and we're not gonna let you in. We're putting up a fight. You may have brought the dark, but together we will shine a light, and whoa, we will be something special.